What is up everyone, and welcome to some more F1 23 My Team career mode, and we're here for round number 6 of season 7 of our Jaguar Racing career, and it is time for the Miami Grand Prix. As you can see here, we had a mechanical failure in our last race in the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, but it actually wasn't all bad because we did pick up some points that weekend after finishing, I believe it was P3 in the sprint. So even though we had a control electronics failure, as you can see there, I'm not that beaten up about it because we did score a few points. Yes, it's put us a little bit further behind Red Bull in both the driver's standings and the constructor's standings, as George Russell leads Esteban Ocon for a 1-2 in the championship, and Red Bull currently sit, 78 points ahead of us in the constructors as well. It's going to take a big effort to get back ahead of them, but as long as myself and Charles Leclerc can continue delivering points consistently, I think that hopefully it should be okay. But yeah, like I said, I was pretty upset about it at the time because I did feel like we had a pretty good chance to score points in Baku. I think hopefully we should be able to bounce back here and get a victory today in Miami. Of course, you may remember last season we raced in Miami and we actually were the victim of a mechanical failure there, which probably robbed us of at least a podium, if not even the win. We were racing Verstappen for the win. He went on to win the Grand Prix. So I was fairly confident that we would have at least been in the conversation for the win last season. And well, I'm hoping that we can kind of come good on that this weekend and at least get a podium finish. That's got to be the minimum here. Hopefully outscore the Red Bulls as well. That's a big target for myself because we need to kind of get back into that championship fight. We can't allow George Russell to keep breaking away from the rest of the pack because he's been looking pretty strong this season so far. Both of the Red Bulls, to be fair, have been looking very strong. I even sort of dubbed it the return of the Red Bull era, as we had another, I think it was a 1-2 from them in Baku actually. So yeah, they are really truly back on top now, and you can see it was actually Verstappen who won the race last year here in Miami and went fastest in practice. So we'll see what kind of performance he can deliver as we make our way into qualifying now. Like I said, the target here I think has got to be, I want to get a podium in the race, so I think the target's got to be a minimum of a top 5 in qualifying, but ideally the higher up we can get, the better it will be. So now as we make our way out on track for our first flying lap, we are on a fresh soft compound tyre, and yeah, around the final corner now, see what kind of time we can do. It wasn't a fantastic lap, this one, and it was only good enough for a 1:26.3, which certainly I think we'll need to improve on by a fairly sizable margin if we want any chance of making it through to Q2. And now as we make our way onto our final flying lap of the session, you can see we were down in P20. Leclerc not improving his time, and he's down in P19, so he will be out in Q1. Incredibly frustratingly, and we are going to round at the final corner across the line. It's a 1:25.6, and that should see us through, and it does indeed, to Q2 in P11. So there we go, we make our way through to Q2, and hopefully we'll be able to make a bit more of an improvement in the next session. We're only 3/10 off Enzo Fittipaldi, who went fastest in that session. So yeah, not a real issue there as such. Only 1 second between the entire field, and it was Perez, Lawson, Hauger, Leclerc, Tsunoda and De Vries knocked out there. Hauger as well, he was on the podium last race, don't forget. Knocked out here in Miami in Q1 this time. So a little bit of an inconsistent performance for the Aston Martin man so far this season, but his teammate Logan Sargent does make it through. Of course, Logan Sargent's home Grand Prix, as it were. He's from Florida, and we're in Miami this weekend, so that's the closest thing to a home race he's going to get. On a used set of soft compound tyres, we did a 1:26.1 to set a banker lap here in Q2, and hopefully we'll be able to improve on that one by a reasonable chunk as we make our way into the final flying lap of Q2 that we did on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. We're currently down in P16, so we're going to need a big improvement here to get ahead of the likes of Fittipaldi and whoever's ahead of him. The two drivers ahead of him will need to beat as well. I think we are improving by enough to finish ahead of Fittipaldi, hopefully. I think we're on track for about a 1:25.6, 1:25.5 at the moment. I think it was a 1:25.4 just about we crept into there actually, and it was good enough for P6, so we do get through to Q3 with no real headache, as it were. It got a bit hairy at the end, I suppose, but I was never really in doubt. In the end of it, I finished 3/10 ahead of Lance Stroll, who very nearly knocked out George Russell, 1/100th of a second away from George Russell in the sister team there for Lance Stroll. But he does join Esteban Ocon, Enzo Fittipaldi, Max Verstappen, Jack Doohan, and Zhou Guanyu in the drop zone. Esteban Ocon, the race winner from both races, in fact, in Baku. He won the sprint and the race, knocked out here in Q2, so he's going to have to work quite hard to get himself back into the points now, the Frenchman in the Red Bull, and we're going to see if we can gun for pole position. We haven't really looked like a shoo-in for it so far in the first couple of qualifying sessions. We've looked a little bit off the pace. We do a 1:25.7 on a used set of soft compound tyres, but it isn't enough to get us off the bottom of the top 10. So now we're going to have to see if we can improve again on a fresh set of soft compound tyres. We are currently improving. Out of Sector 2, we were 5,000ths of a second behind Pierre Gasly, so we'll see whether we can do a faster final sector than him to catch up with him. But we're going to need about a 6th, 10th improvement to finish ahead of the Alpine driver. And, well, it's looking like it might happen here. Looking at the delta at the moment, it's about 6/10 of a second, just under 6/10. So as we cross the line, it is a 1:25.1, and that is good enough to put us in P7. So we don't finish ahead of Gasly, but yeah, still a position that we could probably work from in the Grand Prix tomorrow.
And with qualifying complete, let's review our top 3 today. Russell, Vesti and Logan Sargent. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So it is another pole position for Russell, with Vesti again delivering a great qualifying performance, and Sargent as well in his home race, P3. But look at that gap between Albon, Gasly and myself. We did the same time as Gasly, but we did it later, so he ends up starting ahead of us. But we'll see what kind of performance we can deliver, whether we can get further up the order as we get into the Miami Grand Prix.
Welcome to the Miami International Autodrome, home of the Miami Grand Prix. This exciting track circumnavigates the Hard Rock Stadium, home to the NFL outfit, the Miami Dolphins. Sitting at the southeastern coast of Florida, the Miami International Autodrome has 19 corners and 3.36 miles of racing. It's a circuit designed to encourage close racing while meeting the highest safety standards. Either way, I am sure it's one which will please the fans. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting race. George Russell will begin today's event in pole position, and Frederik Vesti completes the front row. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sargent, Norris, Albon, Gasly, Robinson, Oscar Piastri, Magnussen, Stroll, Ocon, Fittipaldi, Verstappen, Doohan, Zhou, Perez, Liam Lawson, Hauger, Teo Porcher, Leclerc, Tsunoda, and Nick de Vries rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
And once again, Alex Jakes with nothing to say. He's been very quiet in these opening cutscenes recently. But yeah, we will see what kind of performance we can deliver here. Starting P7, of course, Charles Leclerc starting all the way down in P20, I believe. He had an absolutely appalling qualifying. So we're going to need him to have a really strong performance here in the Miami Grand Prix to hopefully make his way back into the points. It is not really an acceptable qualifying performance by anyone's standards from Charles Leclerc, you would have to say. But yeah, hopefully at least we'll be able to get a reasonable performance here. I still think the podium is on, as long as I can get a good start here and hopefully show some good pace compared to the cars in front. It is, of course, the Red Bull of George Russell on pole position, followed by Frederik Vesti, and then I believe that's a Williams in P3. Oh no, it's a Aston Martin, of course, Logan Sargent in the Aston Martin. Used to drive for Williams, of course. Let's see if he can maybe deliver a strong result in his home race as well. It would be interesting to see what he can do. Two Mercedes ahead of us, and then Frederik Vesti's teammate in Pierre Gasly as well. Alpine having an amazing season so far. Let's see what we can do as the lights come on and the lights go out. And we were very late on the throttle there, but we did manage to get going before the lights went out. And, well, Vesti has had an awful start there. He's already down many places. We're going around the outside of Gasly and Albon as well. And Norris, I guess, got caught up in that as well. I didn't even see him. But, yeah, Lando Norris has fallen behind us as well. And in that, we have managed to make our way up from P7 to P3 on the opening lap, which is an absolutely fantastic start for us. And hopefully we'll be able to keep it going throughout the race, see if we can catch up with the likes of Logan Sargent and George Russell. George Russell, who is already breaking away out front, 6/10 ahead of Logan Sargent on this opening lap. Logan Sargent almost a second ahead of me as we make our way through lap 1 now, and well, we might have to settle into P3 very early in this race by the looks of things, because these two drivers are breaking away at pace. Meanwhile, I'm coming under pressure from a man who has been probably the breakout star of the season for me so far, I would say, Frederik Vesti. He's been right up there in qualifying on so many occasions, scoring consistent points in that Alpine as well. He's been absolutely delivering time and time again, and really, really impressive this season, I would have to say, for the Dane. And hopefully he will be not too much of a thorn in my side today as we attempt to get a podium here in the Miami Grand Prix. But looking at the delta to Logan Sargent in front, 1.5 seconds, it does seem like we're going to have a bit of a tall task on our hands here today, you'd have to imagine, because we are currently only 1/10 ahead of Frederik Vesti. It's looking like he might go for a move into to turn 1 here. You'll have to forgive me for the bits where it sounds like my voice is cutting out like a stuttering engine. I am a little bit under the weather at the moment, but I'm trying to battle my way through it, and as we speed things along here for a little bit, you can see Frederik Vesti still staying with me, 2/10 behind me at the moment, and no DRS enabled just yet, but he still seems to have the pace over me in the straights. I thought my car was set up quite well for the straight lines, but I'm realising now I've probably still gone too high on the downforce. We go a little bit wide. We forget we're not playing wide receiver for the Miami Dolphins today, and well, we have to settle for P4 now, see if we can get ahead of Frederik Vesti again, but it will be hard given that he does have that superior straight line speed compared to us. We get our first track limits warning of the day, and we have to make sure we don't get too many more of those, otherwise we will have a penalty coming our way. It never usually happens, so I don't see any reason to worry about it now. And as we make our way onto lap 3, you can see we are quite close to Frederik Vesti now, but are we going to be close enough to go for a move? I don't think so, unfortunately. But, oh, he's gone deep, he's locked up, and we just about spotted the gap up the inside of Frederik Vesti there. Make our way into P3 once again, but I would be surprised if he doesn't come straight back at us over the next DRS zone, especially considering the DRS will be enabled. What kind of gap will we have over him on the entry to the DRS zone? About 0.5 of a second. I think we'll probably close that down, if I'm perfectly honest with you. You can see the gap is already coming down to Frederik Vesti. We burned a little bit of battery here, but based on the performance we've been showing, I think we'll be able to overtake him again if the opportunity calls for it. So Frederik Vesti up the inside into the not the final corner, but the final braking zone, I guess you could say, and now we have to try and catch up with him again if we can. Lance Stroll apparently has an issue. I didn't realise why it was telling me that until I found out that he's actually currently running in P8, which I mean, that must be infuriating when you're running in such a good position in an Alpha Tauri to have an issue like that. Lance Stroll, he's not going to have many or opportunities to score points this season, so it will be very, very frustrating for him, I would imagine. And yeah, I mean, I don't even remember if he scored a single point last season. I know De Vries did, because he had a P4 finish maybe twice, if I remember correctly. So, but I don't remember if Lance Stroll actually finished in the points on any occasion last season. Either way, we're now looking like we're going to get the run on Vesti once again. We're going to try and dummy him to the inside, and then try and send it around the outside, squeeze him to the inside of the corner, and that will give us the inside for the next corner as we enter what is affectionately known as the Mickey Mouse section. And we are going to be ahead of Frederik Vesti as we make our way in here. But once again, will we be able to gap him by enough to break away from him and not allow him to get back past us with the DRS? This time the gap 6.5 of a second. But it is closing fast once again, so yeah, don't be surprised if he goes for a bit of a move here into the braking zone once again, as we're going to brake a little bit later than we did last lap, and that might have just been enough to keep him behind. But as we exit the corner and make our way into the final two corners of the lap, you can see Frederik Vesti has stayed right with us. He's going to have the DRS here as well. This is another DRS zone, of course, and by the time we get to the first corner, he is completely ahead of us. Frederik Vesti making his way into P3 once again. Meanwhile, all this is allowing is George Russell and Logan Sargent to pull a massive gap out in front. We skipped forward a few laps where nothing really happened. I was just staying with Frederik Vesti, but not really putting many challenges on him or anything like that. But as we make our way to lap 7, it's looking like we might be able to go for a move here, as he's defended very aggressively to the inside in the braking zone. I think the medium tyres are starting to be a little bit better than the soft compound tyres now, and this might be the part of the race where we're able to come alive just a little bit, but enough that we are able to mount a bit of a challenge on Frederik Vesti and maybe start to close down George Russell and Logan Sargent in front, but I wouldn't count my chickens before they've hatched on that one. You can see the gap to Frederik Vesti behind, however, was 0.8 of a second on this occasion, and surely that is going to be enough to allow us to stay ahead of him on this occasion, and it does seem that's going to be the case. But then we go deep in the braking zone. We don't brake early enough. We actually make a bit of contact with the wall on the rear of our car. I didn't realise that we did that until just now. When I was racing, I was not even aware that had happened. But that is going to allow Frederik Vesti to look for a move up the inside into lap 8. Is he going to be able to make the move stick? No, he doesn't have the tyre performance anymore, Frederik Vesti, so he's going to have to settle for P4 here, unfortunately. And, well, fortunately for us, I suppose, we will be able to stay in the podium positions. This is where we're targeting, and I think Frederik Vesti might have another look at us on lap 8 on the way through the DRS zone here. He's only 0.2 behind us now. Alex Albon is pretty close as well, so if we're not careful, we can get passed by 2 cars in one corner. Here comes Frederik Vesti up the inside. We're going to try and hang it around the outside of him. He is trying so hard to put the moves on us right now, but he just can't quite make it happen, Frederik Vesti. And that actually, us pushing him wide there, has allowed Alex Albon to make the overtake. And we are now going to be battling with the Mercedes driver instead of the Alpine driver by the looks of things. As we switch to the replay camera here, we're having a look at Sergio Perez, who is out of the race again this season. Sergio Perez having an absolutely horrible run of form recently. Either he's not finishing in the points or he's having a DNF. You know, I can't think of a time where Sergio Perez has really been able to perform this season, and he really needs to get on top of things quickly. They dropped Jahan Daruvala for him, and he is not delivering a performance that is better than what Daruvala was doing at this stage of the season last season. So we could see the Indian driver coming back at some point potentially as Alex Albon makes a move on me into turn 1. Caught me napping. He makes his way into P2 because George Russell is doing a 2-stop, which is a very strange strategy in my opinion, because it is basically entirely reliant on him not getting caught up in traffic. You can see, if you look at your minimap, the second Red Bull on the minimap, George Russell is only about a second or 2 behind Max Verstappen in the other Ferrari at the moment. So, yeah, I can't imagine that this strategy is going to work out for George Russell unless he is absolutely, you know, lethal on the brakes and goes for all the moves in the world. Now, if you were going to back anyone to go for that kind of move, you would back George Russell, as we're going to go for a move on Alex Albon now up the inside and make our way back into P2 here. But yeah, George Russell, if there was, yeah, like I said, if there was anyone you were going to hope was going to go for some really crazy moves, really daring moves, he would be one of the drivers that you would expect to do exactly that. But I still don't think that he's going to be able to make the strategy work, unfortunately, as we now make our way into the pits on lap 13. George Russell has managed to get up into P5. I think a few cars have already pitted at this stage, though. So he was pretty strong on that brake pedal, all things considered. But don't forget, he is going to be pitting again. We saw there that he was on another set of, I think it was either mediums or soft compound tyres, I can't remember, but they definitely won't get him to the end, regardless of what tyre he's on. So I'd say right now, Logan Sargent, the hometown hero, has the net lead of the race here, and George Russell is going to have to really try, once everyone else has pitted, to pull a bit of a gap on the rest of the field. Obviously at the moment he will be ahead of Logan Sargent, but he will need to pit again, as we came under a bit of pressure from Logan Sargent's teammate Dennis Hauger there, actually, who's done well to get himself into this position, but I guess he hasn't pitted yet, so he's not having the best race of his career. Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, has just come out of the pits as well. I don't know what position he's in, but it certainly looks like he's made up positions regardless of what position he's actually running in at the moment. We're now coming under a bit of pressure from Frederik Vesti, who's going to try and go around the outside of us into the braking zone at the end of this DRS zone, but we are just about going to keep him behind by the list of things. Yes, indeed we are. Frederik Vesti is going to have to settle for what will be net P4, I believe. He's actually, I think, undercut Albon by pitting a bit earlier than the Mercedes driver who pitted on the same lap that we did. Lando Norris still yet to come into pits, of course. Now I was trying to see if there was an option in the menu for me to ask what tyres George Russell was on, because at this point I'd actually forgotten that he was running on the soft compound tyres. I was trying to judge whether he was doing a 1-stop or a 2-stop to see whether Vesti had just overtaken me for what is net P2 or net P3 in the race. So yeah, we do make our way down positions now, but don't forget we are on the hard compounded tyres. They will come in a little bit nicer at the end of the race. A few more cars coming into the pits at the end of this lap, including Frederick Vesti's teammate, Alex Albon as well. Not Alex Albon, Pierre Gasly. I saw Alex Albon on the timing tracker and it kind of threw me off a little bit. But yeah, we're doing well to stay with Frederick Vesti. He's not breaking away on these medium compound tyres. I think Esteban Ocon might be doing a 2-stop as well by the looks of things, because he's currently running in P6 on a set of soft compound tyres, and I can't imagine he will have done 15 laps on that set of soft compound tyres, as Frederick Vesti makes the same mistake he made earlier in the race. I'm sure you remember that. That was basically a carbon copy of the mistake that Frederick Vesti made earlier. So now he is falling into P8, which will be net P4, maybe net P3 even if George Russell, I believe, is pitting again. So yeah, this is a battle over P2 in the race between myself and Vesti at the moment, but obviously I don't know what kind of pace George Russell is going to have now that he's in clear air out in front. Liam Lawson has come into the pits as well, and now the only drivers we're waiting on to pit are Russell, Ocon, and I think Enzo Fittipaldi, who's currently running in P2, but obviously will not be running in P2 after the pit stop phase. We came under a bit more pressure there from Frederick Vesti as well, and the pressure is not coming to an end yet on lap 16. As you can see, Frederick Vesti still only 0.4 of a second behind us, as he's going to have the DRS here. He's going to maybe look for a move up the inside. I think he will. Is he going to go for the move? Yes, he left that one very late, but he does eventually go for the dive bomb. Is he going to be able to make it stick though? No, not around the outside. Even on the superior compounded tyres, they're starting to go off a little bit too much already for Frederick Vesti. Couple that with my superior downforce, and it's a bit of a non-contest here between myself and the Dane right now, as we break away a little bit from him through the Mickey Mouse section. And you can see as we make our way now onto lap 18 at Frederick Vesti. I don't know if he's going to be close enough here. He was 0.7 behind as we entered the straight, but he is looking pretty close on this occasion. Is he going to go for a move up the inside? Yes, he is, from a long way back. Dives up the inside. Frederick Vesti into P4 once again. Anyone coming into the pit lane on this lap? No, we're still waiting on a couple more drivers. It's the two Red Bulls, and yeah, we're going to see if we can try and get back ahead of Frederick Vesti. I thought about having a look to the inside of turn 1. Not quite close enough on this occasion. We're going to see if we can stay with him now. Through the next sequence of corners, we will have, of course, another DRS zone to get ahead of him, but we can't fall too far back because Piastri is right behind us. Piastri, who has had a very quiet race, all things considered. He started in P8. He's currently made his way up into what will be P4 once the two Red Bulls come into the pit lane, I believe, although you can see how big the gap that George Russell has pulled on Logan Sargent is now. So I wouldn't be surprised if George Russell actually comes out in a pretty good spot to make some overtakes up into what I imagine will be at least a podium position, if not maybe even P2. I don't think he'll get ahead of Logan Sargent, but I could easily see him getting ahead of everyone else, as we're going to see if we can put the moves on Frederick Vesti. We left that one very late this time, but we kept our footing and got back ahead of the Danish driver. But yeah, we are going to now have to defend from him through the next DRS zone. I'm going to see what the gap is as we enter the DRS zone. It's about 0.6 of a second. He's definitely put the moves on us from this kind of position before, and well, he's already closing it drastically, and the DRS zone hasn't even really started yet. So as we enter the DRS now, he is going to be really, really quick in this straight. He's going to look for a move up the inside, and he's actually going to find it. We're going to see if we can stay with him round the outside, wheel to wheel, but he just has a bit too much grip for me to really make that one work, as George Russell now eventually does come into the pits on lap 19. He's going to be going onto a set of medium compound tyres to the end of the race. We dummy Vesti to the inside. Meanwhile, we're going to try and go around the outside of him here, get back up into P2, which it will be once Ocon has stopped, of course. Well, Logan Sargent's going to have a big gap out in front now. George Russell is within this pack behind me, but he's a little bit far behind if I'm not mistaken. Piastri's got ahead of Vesti. Then it's Magnussen, Albon, Gasly, and I think George Russell is just behind Gasly, maybe going for a move on Gasly now. Ocon has pitted as well, so we make our way up into P2, which I believed was going to be the position that we were running in the whole time. And now we're looking at Esteban Ocon once again on those medium compound tyres. I don't know what position he's currently running in, but whatever position it was, I think it was about P11, P12, something like that. He's now going to really be in the mud because he has spun the car, and he is just, you know, thrashing back and forth, trying to make his way the right way round. Once again, Charles Leclerc, meanwhile, was able to get through there and get himself up into what I believe is P11. So he's actually on the fringes of the points now. But all this that Esteban Ocon is doing was making me very nervous when I saw it on the minimap. And frankly, it was for good reason, because it brought the red flag out. I was like, this is definitely going to bring out a red flag. And that has completely neutralised the strategy that George Russell was running. He was carving his way through the field. I was pretty nervous that he was going to catch up to me pretty soon. He was in P4 when that red flag came out. It was only, I believe, Oscar Piastri left for him to get through before it was George Russell directly behind me. And they're recommending I go onto the medium tyres for the last 3 laps of this race, which I think is utterly preposterous. Even if it is a set of used softs, they will last 3 laps in this race. So that's what we're going to go on. That's what everyone else has gone for. We'll see what we can do as the lights come on. And the lights go out. And Logan Sargent is the only one running on the medium compound tyres, and that might prove to be a mistake for the hometown hero, as he is going to be knocked down into P2 by myself. We've had a good start and we take the lead of the Miami Grand Prix. This is absolutely unprecedented right now. We did not look like we were shoo-in for victory here whatsoever, but that's just how quickly everything can change here. Now we've got to try and defend this position for 3 more laps. Charles Leclerc, who restarted in P11, will not be finishing the race. Absolutely appalling reliability for our team right now. That is our 3rd DNF as a team in 6 races, and yeah, here is Charles Leclerc. You can see just retiring off the start of the Grand Prix. I don't know if there was any kind of impact that anything else had on that, but I'm absolutely furious about this. Once again, it's just another opportunity to score points gone for the team. This time, of course, it wasn't Charles Leclerc's fault at all, but yeah, I just can't believe that that's happened to him, because he was going to make his way from P20 into the points, which would have been an absolutely, you know, amazing display from the Monegasque driver. Meanwhile, Logan Sargent has managed to get back ahead of me, and remember, there will be no DRS until lap 29, so we're going to have to try and stay with him. Of course, he is on the medium compound tyres, we're on the soft, but will my soft start to wear out quickly before the end of the race? We'll have to wait and see whether that proves to be the case or not as we make our way on 1 lap onto lap 28. Still no DRS, of course, but we're going to see if we can try and stay with Logan Sargent, burning a lot of battery here. We're keeping Frederick Vesti nicely behind at the moment. Meanwhile, George Russell is still in P4. So yeah, it seems like they've had to kind of nerf George Russell a little bit by putting him on a shit strategy to make sure that he doesn't win the race, and that has created this absolutely amazing situation where myself and Logan Sargent are battling for the win here. Frederick Vesti, he could be a potential candidate for the conversation as well, as he's closing me down quite a lot here, but with the battery we eventually were able to fend off his attack. We had the DRS as well, of course. We get our 2nd track limits warning of the race. We got our first one on lap 3, our last one on lap 29. I don't think there's a position we can really get track limits warnings from here on out, so we should be okay as far as penalties are concerned. But with the DRS, we are not catching Logan Sargent quickly enough right now. We're going to have a little bit of battery and some DRS to try and get him on the line, but the line comes up quite quickly here, so I don't really know if it's going to be feasible to get ahead of Logan Sargent here. And you can see as we round the final corner, we're going to have to settle for P2.
That was brilliant stuff from Aston Martin today. What a superb victory.
Anthony Davidson, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
It's time to present the top drivers with their trophies for today's Grand Prix. And there are a lot of people in the paddock very happy with this result. It's Aston Martin on the top step.
What a way to win your first race in Formula 1. Logan Sargent stands on the top step of the podium for the first time in his career at his home race. It's his home race as well, because of course it is the Miami Grand Prix. He is a Florida native, so I'm sure that he will be absolutely, you know, just over the moon with this result. We get P2, which, all things considered, given that I started P7 where I was racing, I'm pretty happy with that result. And Frederick Vesti bags his 2nd career podium as well.
And after this round of the World Championship, here's how things look in the drivers' table. That's a positive result for George Russell, who further solidifies his position at the top of the standings. So, Anthony Davidson, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
Logan Sargent gets my vote today.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. No change in the top spot, but with today's points, their hold on the lead is getting weaker. Well, that certainly was an exciting weekend of Formula 1. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula 1 action very soon.
There is something intensely funny to me about this notion that Red Bull already were on a not very good strategy, And then it was Esteban Ocon that spun to bring out the red flag to neutralise any hope of a podium finish that George Russell had, or at least any hope of anything other than pure luck causing him to get a podium. You know, he would have needed to have just got a good start and made his way up several positions off the start, which he didn't do, obviously. So, yeah, George Russell, he probably would have got P2, to be perfectly honest with you, which, I mean, all things considered, if he'd have been on the same strategy as everyone else, he would have got P1. So, obviously, take that with a grain of salt. But, yeah, George Russell would have got P2 if it hadn't been for the red flag, because he was catching Piastri and he probably would have caught me with, you know, 5 laps to go. I think he would have been able to get ahead of me there. But, yeah, that red flag just completely ruined his strategy. But, I mean, all things considered, it was a terrible strategy anyway. I don't know why they thought that would work, because obviously it wasn't going to work. George Russell was the only reason that he was even in the conversation for getting P2 there, never mind, you know, scoring a good chunk of points, is because myself and Frederick Vesti, as you saw, had this really long back and forth battle that was holding up the field so much. You know, it was from lap 13 when I pitted for the hard tyres. When I came out of the pits on lap 14, we were battling non-stop all the way up to lap 19. You know, it was every single lap we were overtaking each other once, maybe twice, maybe even 3 times on a couple of occasions that there would be overtakes made on the same lap. So that was why the rest of the field was so backed up compared to Sargent and Russell, and that was the only reason that George Russell was even looking like he might be in the conversation for a P2 finish here today. But Red Bull just completely bottled their strategy. Like I said, they had to nerf Red Bull a little bit, given how much they were kind of running away with this championship. And I mean, look, they did it. Don't get me wrong. They certainly nerfed them. And yeah, I mean, that has allowed us to close the gap just a little bit, not a massive amount, because don't forget, George Russell still did finish P4 in this race, so it's not like we closed a massive amount to George Russell, but you know, closed up a little bit. We now in P3 in the driver's standings once again, but I mean, look, this is turning into a very entertaining season of my team career mode. Not only that, but like I said, my kind of statement of the new guard kind of coming through is somewhat proving to be true. Obviously, it is George Russell on the top of the championship right now. He is a 2-time world champion in this series already. So whilst him and me aren't necessarily sort of new blood, as it were, Esteban Ocon for the first time is getting himself involved in race wins and championship fights and that kind of thing. And then the next drivers in the championship are Sargent, Vesti, and Hauger. So yeah, real kind of, you know, a changing of the guard type moment here in Formula 1 in Season 7, and it kind of makes me sad that we're going to be leaving this save behind after this series, because I would love to see you know, what kind of performance those guys are going to show later on down the line. But yeah, I mean, as far as everything is concerned, that is going to be it for this video. So if you enjoyed, please make sure you like and subscribe, and hopefully I will see you in the next one.